Part 2, The Majesty of Tanus. A World Beyond Imagination. As Dr. Elliot Kane stepped out of the royal shuttle and onto the polished marble landing bay, he was immediately struck by the sheer grandeur of Tanus. The air was crisp and fragrant, carrying the scent of blooming alien flowers. The twin suns cast a golden glow over the capital city of Lara, making the towering spires of glass and stone shimmer like jewels. It was a world unlike anything Elliot had ever seen, a perfect blend of natural beauty and technological marvel. Commander Yarrick, the king's loyal guard, stood beside him, his silver armor gleaming. "Welcome to Tanus, Dr. Kane," he said, his voice deep and steady. "The king has arranged for you to tour the city before the eclipse celebration begins. I hope you find it enlightening." The city of Lara. Elliot was escorted through the bustling streets of Lara, where alien citizens of various species moved gracefully between towering structures. The architecture was a mix of organic curves and sharp angles, with buildings that seemed to grow out of the ground like living things. Hovercrafts zipped silently through the air, and holographic displays projected vibrant images of art and history. As they walked, Yarrick explained the significance of the city's landmarks. "That spire there," he said, pointing to a towering structure that seemed to pierce the sky, "is the Hall of Echoes. It houses the history of Tanus, recorded in light and sound. And over there," he gestured to a massive dome surrounded by lush gardens, "is the Celestial Gardens, where the royal family often meditates." A meeting with Lyra. Their tour led them to a sprawling research facility nestled at the edge of the city. Inside, they were greeted by Lyra, a brilliant scientist with fiery red hair and a sharp wit. She was the head of Tanus's Advanced Medical Research Division and had been tasked with showing Elliot their latest innovations. "Dr. Kane," Lyra said with a smirk, "I've heard a lot about you. The man who saved the Queen with nothing but a scalpel and determination. Impressive." Elliot chuckled nervously. "I just did what I could. Your facilities here are incredible." Lyra led them through the lab, showcasing cutting-edge medical technology that far surpassed anything Elliot had ever seen. There were machines that could regenerate tissue in minutes, nanobots that could repair damaged organs, and even devices that could map a patient's entire genetic code in seconds. A hint of trouble. As they continued the tour, Elliot noticed a subtle tension in the air. Lyra's cheerful demeanor occasionally faltered, and she exchanged guarded glances with Yarrick. When Elliot asked about it, she brushed it off. "Just some internal disagreements," she said vaguely. "Nothing to worry about." But Elliot couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The royal feast. That evening, Elliot was invited to a grand feast in the palace's opulent dining hall. The room was filled with the elite of Tanus, nobles, scientists, and military leaders, all dressed in elaborate attire. King Theon sat at the head of the table, his presence commanding yet warm. "Dar. Kane," Theon said, raising a glass, "tonight, we honor you. Your bravery and skill have brought hope to our people. Let this celebration be a testament to the bond between our worlds." The guests applauded, and Elliot felt a mix of pride and unease. He wasn't used to such attention, and the grandeur of it all was overwhelming. A whispered warning. As the feast continued, Lyra leaned over to Elliot and whispered, "Be careful, Doctor. Not everyone here is as grateful as the king." Before Elliot could ask what she meant, she was pulled into a conversation with a group of nobles. His mind raced. What had she meant? Who in this room could possibly wish him harm? The eclipse approaches. The next day, the city buzzed with excitement as the eclipse celebration drew near. The rare celestial event, where Tanus's twin suns aligned perfectly, was said to bring good fortune and renewal. But as Elliot prepared for the festivities, he couldn't shake Lyra's warning. That evening, as the first sun began to dip below the horizon, Elliot stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The sky was painted in hues of orange and purple, and the air was filled with the sound of music and laughter. But beneath the surface of celebration, he sensed a storm brewing. A new alliance. As the eclipse began, casting the city in an eerie twilight, Elliot found himself face to face with Lyra once more. "I need your help," she said urgently. "There's a plot against the king, and I can't stop it alone." Elliot's heart pounded. "What do you mean? Who's behind it?" Lyra glanced around nervously. "I'll explain everything, but we need to move quickly. The eclipse is the perfect cover for their plans." A choice to make. Elliot hesitated. He had come to Tanus as a guest, not a hero. But the thought of innocent lives being threatened stirred something deep within him. "All right," he said firmly. "What do we do?" Lyra's eyes lit up with determination. "Follow me." As they slipped away from the celebration, Elliot realized that his journey on Tanus was far from over. The majesty of the planet had captivated him, but now, he was stepping into a world of danger and intrigue. Part 4, Shadows in the Palace. The Hidden Network. The palace was eerily quiet as Dr. Elliot Kane, Lyra, and King Theon gathered in a secure chamber deep within its walls. The grandeur of the palace now felt oppressive, its opulent halls hiding secrets and dangers. Lyra had accessed the palace's central data core, her fingers flying across a holographic interface as she searched for evidence of the rogue faction's communications. "They're using encrypted channels," Lyra muttered, her brow furrowed in concentration. "But I think I can trace their signals back to the source." Elliot watched her work, impressed by her skill but uneasy about the risks they were taking. "What happens if they realize we're onto them?" he asked. Lyra glanced at him, her expression grim. "Then we'll have a fight on our hands. But we don't have a choice. If we don't stop them now, they'll try again, and next time, they might succeed." A dangerous discovery. After what felt like hours, Lyra finally let out a triumphant breath. "Got it. I've traced their communications to a hidden facility beneath the palace. It's a restricted area, used for storing old archives and decommissioned technology. They must be using it as a base of operations." King Theon's face darkened. "That facility hasn't been used in decades. I had no idea it was even accessible." Elliot crossed his arms, his mind racing. "If we go down there, we'll be walking into a trap. They'll be expecting us." Lyra nodded. "Which is why we need to be smart about this. We'll need a distraction, something to draw their attention while we gather evidence." The plan. The three of them spent the next hour refining their plan. Commander Yarrick would lead a team of loyal guards in a sweep of the palace's upper levels, creating the illusion of a security crackdown. Meanwhile, Elliot and Lyra would infiltrate the hidden facility, using a maintenance tunnel that Lyra had discovered in the palace blueprints. "Once we're inside," Lyra explained, "we'll need to locate their command center and download their data. If we can get proof of their plans, we can expose them to the entire planet." Elliot nodded, though his stomach churned with anxiety. He wasn't a soldier or a spy, he was a medic. But he knew he couldn't stand by while innocent lives were at risk. Into the depths. The maintenance tunnel was narrow and dimly lit, its walls lined with pipes and conduits. Elliot followed Lyra as she led the way, her movements confident and precise. They moved in silence, the only sound the soft hum of the palace's systems. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a heavy door marked with warning symbols. Lyra used a device to bypass the lock, and the door slid open with a faint hiss. Beyond it lay the hidden facility, a sprawling network of corridors and chambers filled with outdated technology and forgotten relics. A close call. They had only taken a few steps when they heard voices echoing down the corridor. Lyra grabbed Elliot's arm and pulled him into a shadowy alcove, pressing a finger to her lips. Two figures in dark robes passed by, their conversation hushed but urgent. The king's guards are sweeping the upper levels, one of them said. We need to move the weapons before they find us. Elliot's heart pounded as he listened. Weapons? Just how far had this faction gone? The command center. Once the coast was clear, Lyra and Elliot continued their search, eventually finding the facility's command center. The room was filled with monitors and consoles, their screens displaying maps, communications, and schematics. Lyra immediately began downloading the data, her fingers flying across the controls. Elliot kept watch, his senses on high alert. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that danger was lurking just around the corner. A sudden ambush. The sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor, growing louder with each passing second. Elliot turned to Lyra. How much longer? Almost done, she whispered, her eyes fixed on the screen. But it was too late. The door burst open, and a group of armed figures stormed into the room, their weapons trained on Elliot and Lyra. Well, their leader sneered. Looks like we have some uninvited guests. A desperate escape. Elliot's mind raced as he assessed the situation. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but he wasn't about to give up without a fight. He glanced at Lyra, who gave him a subtle nod. In one swift motion, Lyra activated a device on her wrist, sending out a pulse of energy that disabled the lights and systems in the room. In the chaos that followed, Elliot grabbed her hand and they bolted for the door, dodging the disoriented attackers. A narrow escape. They ran through the darkened corridors, their pursuers close behind. Lyra led the way, her knowledge of the facility's layout proving invaluable. They finally reached the maintenance tunnel and sealed the door behind them, cutting off their pursuers. Elliot leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. That was too close. Lyra grinned, holding up a data chip. But we got what we came for. This is everything we need to expose them. The weight of truth. As they made their way back to the surface, Elliot couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The data they had recovered would reveal the depth of the conspiracy, and the lengths to which the rogue faction was willing to go. But exposing the truth would also mean plunging Tanus into a crisis, one that could tear the planet apart. When they finally emerged into the palace's main halls, King Theon was waiting for them, his expression a mix of relief and concern. Did you find it? Lyra handed him the data chip. Everything you need to know is on here. But be prepared, this is going to shake the foundations of your rule. Theon nodded solemnly. Then we must act quickly. The future of Tanus depends on it. A new dawn. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Elliot stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The events of the night had left him exhausted but resolute. He had come to Tanus as a guest, but now he was a key player in a struggle that would determine the fate of an entire world. And as he gazed out at the gleaming spires of Lara, he knew that his journey was far from over. Part 3, The Eclipse Celebration. A Gathering of Shadows. The eclipse celebration was in full swing, with the grand plaza of Lara illuminated by thousands of floating lanterns and holographic displays. The air was filled with the sound of alien music, a haunting melody that seemed to echo the celestial event above. The twin suns of Tanus aligned perfectly, casting the city in an ethereal twilight. Dr. Elliot Kane stood at the edge of the crowd, his mind racing. Lyra's warning had left him on edge, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go terribly wrong. He scanned the plaza, searching for any signs of danger, but everything seemed peaceful, too peaceful. The king's speech. King Theon stepped onto a raised platform at the center of the plaza, his presence commanding the attention of everyone present. People of Tanus, he began, his voice resonating through the air, tonight, we celebrate not only the alignment of our suns but also the unity of our people. And we honor a man whose courage and skill have brought hope to our world, Dr. Elliot Kane. The crowd erupted into applause, and Elliot felt a wave of discomfort. He wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially in such a grand setting. As the king continued his speech, Elliot noticed a group of figures moving stealthily through the crowd. They were dressed in dark robes, their faces obscured, and they seemed to be converging on the platform. A sudden attack. Before Elliot could react, chaos erupted. One of the robed figures leaped onto the platform, brandishing a weapon that crackled with energy. The crowd screamed and scattered as the figure lunged at King Theon. "Your reign ends tonight," the attacker shouted, his voice filled with venom. Elliot acted on instinct. He pushed through the panicked crowd, his medic's training kicking in. He reached the platform just as the attacker swung his weapon at the king. Without thinking, Elliot tackled the assailant, knocking him to the ground. A hero's resolve. The attacker struggled, but Elliot held him down with surprising strength. "Stay down," he growled, his voice firm. Commander Yarrick and the royal guards quickly surrounded the platform, subduing the attacker and his accomplices. The plaza was in chaos, with people running in every direction and the once celebratory atmosphere replaced by fear and confusion. The aftermath. As the situation was brought under control, King Theon approached Elliot, his expression a mix of gratitude and concern. "Dr. Kane, you have saved my life once again. I am in your debt." Elliot shook his head. "I just did what anyone would have done. But we need to find out who's behind this." Lyra's revelation. Lyra appeared at Elliot's side, her face pale but determined. "I told you there was a plot," she said breathlessly. "These attackers are part of a rogue faction within the palace. They've been planning this for months." Elliot frowned. "Why would they want to overthrow the king?" Lyra hesitated, glancing at Theon before speaking. "They believe the king's policies are too lenient, that he's too focused on peace and diplomacy. They want to take control and expand Tanuz's influence through force. A dangerous alliance." King Theon's expression darkened. "I had suspected dissent within the ranks, but I never imagined it would come to this." Elliot looked at Lyra. "What do we do now?" Lyra's eyes gleamed with determination. "We need to expose the leaders of this faction before they can strike again. But we'll need proof, something that can't be ignored. A plan in motion." The three of them retreated to a secure chamber within the palace, where they began to formulate a plan. Lyra explained that the rogue faction had been using the palace's advanced technology to communicate and coordinate their attacks. If they could intercept one of their messages, they might be able to identify the leaders and bring them to justice. "But it won't be easy," Lyra warned. "They're well organized and have allies in high places. We'll need to move carefully. A test of loyalty." As the night wore on, Elliot found himself questioning his role in all of this. He had come to Tanuz as a guest, not a warrior or a spy. But the thought of innocent lives being threatened, of a peaceful world being torn apart by greed and ambition, stirred something deep within him. "I'll help," he said finally. "But we need to do this the right way. No unnecessary risks." King Theon nodded. "Your wisdom is invaluable, Dr. Kane. Together, we will protect Tanuz and its people." The calm before the storm. As the eclipse reached its peak, casting the city in an otherworldly glow, Elliot felt a sense of resolve. The celebration had been shattered, but the fight for Tanuz's future was just beginning. Little did he know, the rogue faction was already preparing their next move, a move that would test the limits of his courage and ingenuity. Part 1, The Summons of the Stars. The encrypted message. Dr. Elliot Kane sat in the dimly lit medbay of his small clinic on the outer rim colony of Vera 4. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic and the hum of outdated medical equipment. He had just finished suturing a deep gash on a young miner's arm when his data pad buzzed with an incoming message. The screen flashed with an unfamiliar insignia, a golden crest surrounded by intricate alien symbols. His heart skipped a beat as he read the words. Dr. Kane, the House of Thaler extends its deepest gratitude for your service. You saved the life of my mother, Queen Regent Navarra, and for that, you have the eternal thanks of the Tanan throne. In honor of your heroism, I invite you as my personal guest to the eclipse celebration at the Royal Palace. This is not a request but a summons of gratitude. King Theon, Sovereign of Tanus. A life of service. Elliot leaned back in his chair, the weight of the message sinking in. He had spent over a decade as a medic on the Outer Rim, treating everything from minor injuries to life-threatening conditions. He had never sought recognition, his work was simply a duty he had chosen because no one else would. The memory of Queen Navarra's case came flooding back, a woman brought to his clinic in critical condition, poisoned by a rare neurotoxin. He had worked tirelessly to save her, but she had left before he could even learn her name. The decision. Elliot stared at the royal seal on his data pad, his mind racing. He didn't belong in a palace. His place was among the dusty colonies and makeshift clinics, not the grand halls of nobility. But curiosity tugged at him. What was Tanus truly like? And what kind of gratitude did a king bestow upon a mere doctor? With a deep breath, he typed his reply, I accept. The journey begins. Days later, Elliot found himself aboard a sleek royal shuttle, descending through the atmosphere of Tanus. The view from the cockpit was breathtaking, vast crystalline oceans, sprawling emerald forests, and towering spires of glass and stone that gleamed in the sunlight. The capital city of Lara stretched before him like a masterpiece of both nature and civilization. As the shuttle touched down in a designated landing bay, an honor guard awaited him, their polished armor reflecting the twin suns overhead. A royal welcome. Commander Yarrick, a tall and imposing figure with silver-streaked hair, stepped forward to greet him. Dr. Kane, on behalf of King Theon and the people of Tanus, welcome. Elliot nodded, feeling out of place in his simple medic's uniform. As he was escorted through the palace gates, he couldn't shake the feeling that his quiet life was about to change forever. The Palace of Wonders. The royal palace was a marvel of architecture, with soaring arches, intricate mosaics, and gardens filled with exotic flora. Elliot was led to a grand hall where King Theon awaited him. The king was younger than Elliot had expected, with piercing blue eyes and a regal bearing. Dar. Kane, Theon said, his voice warm but commanding, your heroism has not gone unnoticed. Tonight, we celebrate your courage and the bond between our worlds. A glimpse of the future. As the sun set and the first stars appeared in the sky, Elliot felt a sense of awe and unease. He had saved a queen, but what lay ahead in this alien world of opulence and intrigue? Little did he know, his journey was only beginning.